All right, having reached 8:30, I'd like to call the meeting of the Law and Government Committee to order. Noting we have board members Wegner, Campbell, Kunkel, Shorten, Sager, Altoff. That's a full complement, I believe, so a quorum is here. First item on the agenda is the minute approval. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Board member Sager, seconded by board member Kunkel. I'm now going to drop the board member because it's too much of a mouthful. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, minutes are approved then. Any public comment? Did anyone sign in? I don't believe so. And you just did that so you could walk by the donuts.
That's correct.
No one signed in for public comment, so we'll go on. Are there any member comments this morning? I hope you all had a good holiday weekend. Safe, good. Mr. Shorten?
I just have a brief comment. I know that the agenda is not large, so I'll keep my comments to the point. Yesterday, of course, was Memorial Day, and I took a little bit of a different track after several days of prepping for graduation, small graduation gathering for my middle daughter who graduated from nursing school at Carthage College this past Saturday. We had family over on Sunday, and I needed a day away. We'll call it a shorty day. And so I got in my car and drove about 2.5 hours straight west to Joe Daviess County and visited Apple River State Park, which is a lovely little place. I've never been there before, but I used that opportunity, solitude by myself, to think about Memorial Day and what it actually stood for. And as I pondered that, you gain a lot of respect for the fact that the large number of men and women that have served our country and lost their lives in foreign lands. And the sacrifice that they made should not be understated. It caught me off guard just when I started wrapping my head around that. And you know, I think as leaders in government, we have to take that into account. We all ought to be grateful for the gifts that we have, because many of those gifts are the blood of others. So coming back from that, and I popped open my computer last night and started reading through some of the capital fax notices that have come through in the past week. And you know, I think that a lot of the folks that went and served our country and died for our country believed in freedom and believed in this concept of America. And so I think that we ought to be cognizant of the laws that are passed at the state level and the laws that are passed at the federal level, and how those laws potentially undermine the freedoms, the idea of America that we have in this country. Last week, between the 17th and the 25th, Springfield did what they always do. So they took a shell bill, stripped it out, and put in new language. This particular bill was House Bill 3062. And what House Bill 3062 does, it took a bill that was about landlord-tenant relations, pulled out all the language, you know, from the exacting clause on, and the new language just says, and I'm going to read it. Amendment 2 provides that if an action is brought against a state or any of its officers, employees, or agents acting in official capacity on or after the effective date of the amendatory act seeking declaratory or injunctive relief against any state statute, rule, or executive order on an alleged violation of the Constitution of the State of Illinois or the Constitution of the United States, venue in that action is proper only in the County of Sangamon and the County of Cook. Define state, effective immediately. So what that means is that if anyone has a complaint against a state having to do with the constitutionality of law, whether it's suing the governor, the state's attorney general, it's got to go to Cook County, it's got to go to Sangamon. And that, I think, is a huge problem, not only for our county, but for our citizens, is that we should not be forced to go to a court far away. And I feel for the people in downstate Illinois in Joe Davies County, where if they have a complaint against the state of Illinois government, they have to go to Cook County or to Sangamon. So I wanted to bring that to your attention and ponder it. The other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, and I'm going to try not to sound like a harbinger of doom, but there's a lot been going on in the past several months related to artificial intelligence. And it's something that, frankly, our state government hasn't done a lot to attack, and frankly, our federal government has done zero to attack. There was a statement that was released this morning. There's news stories about it on commonly read news sources that an organization called AI Safety released a statement that's been signed by figures including Google DeepMind CEO Denise, I'm going to say this wrong, Hacebas, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, as well as Jeffrey Hinton and Yosha Bengio. I'm probably messing up some of these names. Two of the three, and this is from the article, two of the three AI researchers who won the 2018 Turing Award, sometimes referred to as a Nobel Prize of Computing, for their work in AI. If you paid attention to the news in the past week or so, May 22nd, an AI-generated photo of an explosion at the Pentagon caused a brief downturn in the stock market. The statement that was released this morning by AI Safety is simple. 22 words. It says this, and it's signed by, again, very high-profile people. Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority, alongside with other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. This may be well outside of our lane, but I think as leaders it's something that we need to educate ourselves about and start talking to our state representatives and start talking to our congressional representatives about. Because once you understand the power of that computing system and what it can do, it is a bit terrifying. So again, I don't mean to be the harbinger of doom, and I'm hoping that this will be laughed about in a couple of years, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually was going to suggest, now that the summertime season is fast approaching, is that perhaps we invite Senator Wilcox and Senator DeWitt, only because Senator DeWitt is actually on the budgeting committee and might have some insight, and obviously because Senator Wilcox can be here in less than 6 minutes. So I thought maybe we would invite them to give us a little bit of insight, and maybe there could be a conversation about AI at that particular time and other things that maybe that we're interested in, roads, whatever that might be. But I thought those two gentlemen, because they've got a little bit of a different insight, might want to come and just say hello and talk about what the session was like. So I'm giving that to Elise. So thank you. Any other member comments? Ms. Wagner.
Yesterday, I attended 2 different Memorial Day services, one in McHenry, and then Lynn and I were both at the one in Crystal Lake, and they were both moving. But I have to tell you, the one in Crystal Lake had a woman, a colonel, who talked about the mental health of soldiers and how we don't take it seriously enough. And it, as a colonel, it was very admirable for her to come out and talk about it, and it was and how it affected her and her other soldiers. But the day before, on Saturday, there was a March 22 here in the county, and I wish that we had known more about it. Was the VAC involved in that, do you know, Peter? Okay. I think that's something that we as a county government should do. It's March 22 was, and I think you guys know about it. Didn't you guys lead them? Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for that. I actually talked to somebody about it, and they said thank the sheriff's office for us. But it was a March 22 miles people walked because of the approximately 22 veterans that die by suicide every day. So I just think that's something that we need to keep our eye on the future, and I think it would behoove us to be part of that.
Yeah, I was just going to add on that, because that's what came up yesterday during the colonel's talk, was that 22 veterans die by suicide every single day. And then offline, when we were talking with her afterwards, it was you could actually double that. Somebody had told her you need to double that number, because that does not include people who die by alcohol and drug abuse and overdose. that's also related to it, so.
Thank you. Anyone else, Mr. Thacker?
I don't really want to move too far afield of the item on the agenda, but one of the things I'm a little bit concerned about reading again capital facts and some of those other reviews of what's going on in Springfield, but I have a concern about this effort to claw back the American Recovery Plan monies, and I'm just kind of hoping that we're aware of the fact that if we don't have those committed in a timely manner, ultimately we are going to be subject to loss of opportunities. So just, thank you.
Do you have any comment? I mean, you're aware, I know you're aware.
I think we have a, I can speak very intelligently on where the dollars are going, but in terms of fully committed, we'll need to understand what the federal government defines as committed.
And I think that also too, to ensure that those people who are receiving those dollars are using them as appropriately and as rapidly as they possibly can to not saving it from later.
I did see that some of that discussion, Member Soccer's comment, was part of this hopeful debt recovery.
Ceiling.
The debt ceiling issue, there is some of those dollars are going to be hurt. I'm hopeful that those are federal dollars that are already out.
Haven't already been out,
Right.
yes, right, promised, yeah. And I'm sure that that is the conversation. But maybe we could have an update on that and see where that is. Thank you. Yeah, you're the only, no, nothing from you. Donuts, you brought donuts. Thank May. Donuts. There we go. All right, moving on to new business. We have no liquor license issues. So it actually now is, I'd like to turn it over to Dave Christensen for an introduction of our new Deputy Director of EMA.
It's tough for change, right, for all of us, especially as we age. Bob Ellsworth retires tomorrow. You should see the attire that he's wearing today. He's almost on retirement now. 29 years he gave to this county, and years before that as a volunteer, and we are going to miss that. But I think we found a star from the West Coast, and that's Brooke Loyd. And Brooke, if you want to tell me about yourself, that'd be great.
Well, yeah, come on over and stand up and.
To be clear, I'm not exactly from the West Coast. I'm from Iowa, about 3 hours from here, Iowa City, Iowa.
Go Hawks.
We're both alumni, so I can appreciate that.
Both my kids.
It's a pleasure for me to be here. I've been wanting to get back to the Midwest for quite some time, and I have spent some time in actually Chicago. So this is nice because it's like I'm close to familiar land, but I still have a lot of learning to do. Mostly names at this point, so if I forget yours, please forgive me. I'm still learning. But pleasure to be here. Happy to get to work. Happy to work with all of you. So, thank you.
Congratulations. Dolly, does anybody have any questions? Biggest challenge, you think? New eyes. Are you seeing anything?
Well, today I'm thinking biggest challenge is names.
Names.
I love the honesty.
Some homework. That's just naturally how my brain operates. So I was telling David this morning, I've already made some maps. I've already been kind of looking over like kind of the lay of the land. And I'll probably have an answer for you the next time. But
That would be great. I'm always real curious when new employees have an opportunity to kind of come in and see the landscape with a little bit of a different perspective. So, welcome, and we hope that you use that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because that was part of the discussion we had as we interviewed. We interviewed 8 people from around the state and around the country. And one of the things that I look for is I think we do a pretty good job, right? I think we could do a great job. But sometimes it takes somebody looking from the outside, and IEMA gets nervous every time I go and do something outside of the state because it brings back new ideas, right, and new emphasis. And that's what I'm looking to Brooke, that I think she has a lot to offer and maybe just a different view on it. So I'm excited about that, and I'm glad you brought that up because that I think it'll infuse some new energy, new life into EMA and all of our participating communities. I appreciate it. We got to run. We got to get her off the orientation, and maybe get her an ID badge and everything.
Well, welcome, Brooke, really.
Thank you.
We wish you well. And then had a lovely conversation last week with Judge Camille, who wanted to come and provide us with updates and insights on what's going on in the court. So, Your Honor, you want to come
No,
forward?
Pam, I just said I was bringing yogurt and donuts.
And donuts,
Sorry,
so-
Country Donuts, I had a couple of calls. No, I just,
I think it's lovely that you want to talk to us periodically, so thank you.
normally people don't want to talk to us. No, I asked Dan, and I work with Dawn Mitchell, she's my assistant provided by the state, to put all of your meetings and all the county board meetings on my calendar, and if I could ever come, I will. Dan gets nervous when I come alone unescorted.
Wise decision, Dan.
No, but you know, five quick things, Pam.
Please.
One, we're excited. We're going to have a new judge back online. We were denied the opportunity to have a judge. Many of you may know Cynthia Lamb. She's an attorney from Crystal Lake. She was selected among our 8. She's going to take the job if she signs the oath and raises the hand July 1st. And you're all invited. July 7th, we're going to have our ceremony. It's a Friday, first Friday in July at 11 o'clock in our courtroom 204. Second, we're also going through kind of a stressful time because we take it seriously, the reappointment process for all of our associate judges. Associate judges are appointed for 4-year terms. So that we just balloted last week, or actually they're being mailed today statewide. So about half of the judges in the state, give or take, are up for reappointment. And it was a good process. It is a good process. So that'll be, we'll tell you all about that when the results are announced, which should all be positive. We're going to do some planning. I told Dan when I took the job, I don't care if it was a small committee or a big board. I think we should always plan. Look what's currently going on, look what's going to go on or what should go on. So in our June meeting, we're going to try to do some planning. We're going to get ready for next year. We're hoping to invite all of you maybe. You know, I'm always projecting maybe to get together with us, share some ideas and what have you. But then two last things. Talk about, well, AI. Between Dan and myself, I'll include Dan, and somehow I'm becoming the conduit or the organizer for AI considerations for the court system in Illinois. And I participated in a conference of the Illinois State Bar Association in March in Champaign, something called Ellerton. It's a think tank every 2 years. And I made a presentation, and I'm advancing it through the conference of chief judges that we have. We meet monthly. And my proposal is that all courts, all circuit courts, have a plan to deal with AI within the next 2 years. I co-presented this, well then a couple of weeks ago, with a person who's a CIO. I guess there's something called a CIO, right? Of a big law firm. And he kind of politely laughed and he said, "You're giving yourself 2 years? You know, seriously. Talking about it today, we're already behind." So I applaud Mr. Short for bringing it up. I mean, everywhere I go, I seem to be dealing with it. And the last thing is really exciting too, how we're all helping, I'd like to think. But Dan, with David from the clerk's office, we think created a, how would you call it, a solution for Zoom bombing. We go to a monthly meeting, I go to a monthly meeting, all the chief judges in the state. Tim Evans, who heads half the judges in Cook County, and Brad Waller from DeKalb, everybody was concerned about Zoom bombing because we have to make our proceedings available remotely. So I came back after 2 months and I chaired a technology committee. Imagine that. I said, "Dan, we got to find a solution." And I think it was 24, 48 hours later he comes in. We figured out Zoom. So we made a presentation and we rolled it out through a nice presentation to the other chiefs. And hopefully we gave them a solution. We're going to implement that starting July 1st. Basically, it's a process where you have to go through the firewall to get at your case in the courtroom. But people have open access. It's just adding a step. We hope to eliminate just about all of the Zoom bombing because that was starting to get concerning through nefarious conduct. But other than that, I will say this, thank you for all you do for us. What inspired me to come today specifically is I saw Dan and Peter worked on a resolution to help us with some of our financing. Hopefully that's good with you all, but it reminded me that I should come and be true to my word and my plan. If you all have any questions, by all means, but I can assure you, we're working pretty hard. We've already got a lot of ideas for future Judge Lamb, and thanks again for all you do. I mean that.
And thank you. We're very honored that, you know, you yourself are here and addressing us, so we appreciate that. What's our ratio now with our judges, male, female?
With Judge Lamb, we'll have 5 women and 14 men. Yeah, that's something we took to heart. And I don't want to give up what we had excellent applicants, 17 applicants. And Judge Lamb survived the vote as the best candidate to help us with our spot. So, yeah. Other questions?
Mr. Sherman?
I'd appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you and talk about what you're doing with AI.
Sure.
And I'm just spinning here in my head. So one of the things that I've been spending a lot of time on the Chat GPT and just kind of understanding what it can do, which if you haven't, sign up and do it. It's interesting, entertaining, and terrifying all at the same time. I was trying to demonstrate it to my buddy Joel, and I want. It was kind of a old men with our 16-year-old brains, but I typed in to ChatGPT that I wanted to compose a resolution for me, recognizing my friend's contributions to the world. We'll put it that way. And like that, it popped out whereases all the way down. So, and then when you talk about tomb bombing, same thing. AI video, if you haven't taken a dive into that yet, that's moving along pretty quick. So,
with the chair's indulgence, I'll share this memo that I used in March, and it gives you my proposal, it gives you some of what you're talking about. But my philosophy is, sure, I want to bury it away, right, Brian? I like the past, right? The beautiful courthouse on the square, but here we are. So I think we have to learn about it, you know, realize it's there, and try to work with it and manage it.
sure.
Yeah. But it's a lot. So.
People are definitely going to pursue.
Oh my goodness. And I really did bring donuts and yogurt.
But they got lost.
And Pam, I don't know if the donuts are, what did I say, probiotic?
Probiotic, and then I said yogurt, but yeah.
So again, thank you all
Thank
for
you very
allowing us
much.
to be here
Thank you,
and
Judge.
for our collaboration.
Thank you.
All right, have a good day.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Moving on to the legislative update. Alicia and Shaylin, you want to come forward and I would imagine there's some good news. I hope so.
Oh, there's definitely lots of news. Here, let me get set.
Just as a participant who actually literally was still sitting there when people adjourned after midnight. Yeah, just saying.
All right, so you should all be receiving the electronic forms of the documents. All right, so you have 2 updates today. You have one which is this lovely report that I drafted for you, and another that is the legislation with all the bills that we've been tracking over the course of time, so you can see what made it, what did not. But what is most important for your purposes, as Pam noted, the General Assembly adjourned on May 27th. We're looking at a veto session that's going to be coming up October 24 to October 26, and then November 7 and November 9. So that's your procedural items. But bills of note, what you guys want to know about. House Bill 2800. It passed both chambers as of May 11th. Now it's going to go to the governor for, it is to the governor for signature. He's got 60 days to get that signed, veto it, or ignore it altogether, in which case it still becomes law. So we owe a debt of gratitude to Senator DeWitt and to Representative Ness for their efforts in advocating this legislation and getting it through the General Assembly. Another interesting bill that actually went through and also in May was Senate Bill 40. Now, this one is interesting because it's called the Electric Vehicles Charging Act. And what it does is it makes it so that developers have to put in parking lots that are capable of charging electric vehicles. That does not require that they have the actual stations inserted, but they have to have the wiring installed for newly constructed single-family homes and multifamily residences going forward. And that's within 90 days of the effective date of the act. And should it go through and the governor signs it, that means we're looking at 90 days from July 1st. So that will be something very new going forward. Now, it does not require that, if you're renovating a property like an association, that you have to dig up a parking lot to do that. This is for new constructions only, so that's an important piece. But there's also an interesting exemption that goes for affordable housing units that are designated as such. Such units would actually have a delay period of 2 years from the effective date of the bill, and they would only have to have a certain allocation of electric-capable parking spaces as to 100%, and that goes for, and again, you can read the report, but at 24 months, you got to have at least 40%, going at 5 years, it's 50%, and at 10 years, it's 70% of those particular parking spaces, and this is all going to be regulated by building permits, so that's something for us to keep an eye on. Now, let's go into the BIP, the Budget Implementation Bill. That was House Bill 3817. The LGDF is allegedly set to increase 6.16% up to 6.47. At the Senate, Senator DeWitt said that it was supposed to be approximately $112 million going to local governments. There might be a little bit of contention with that. I'll let Shaylin take that one. But there's also some good news in that the BIMP included a $60 million set to township bridges. This was a initiative that Representative Sosnowski co-sponsored. It's also on our legislative program. And this is an increase from $15 million to $60 million. That $15 million had been in place since 1979 to repair those bridges. So definitely a victory. Also, this is kind of tangential, but the court case, 19 MR 861, the case regarding the constitutionality of the McHenry County specific legislation in regards to the dissolution of townships, that has not been appealed by the state. And outreach to legislators. Chairman Bueller was kind enough to send out a letter requesting that the governor expedite his signing of the House Bill 2800 so that it can become law faster, and our Division of Transportation has time to, get all the, ducks in a row it needs to make sure that we keep all grant funding. And also, Representative Ness was kind enough to flag a certain piece of legislation that impacted how public-private partnerships work with the state, and she asked for staff input and made sure that, we are aware of it and we're able to provide feedback in a timely manner. And that is what I have. Do you guys have questions?
Or Shaylin, you want to present your report and then we'll open it up for questions?
Yeah, mine's very brief.
Please say that. No.
Oh, it's okay. Did you want to?
I just have one question. The LGDF, any idea how much money that is increasing to our county?
That's probably more for Peter.
Yeah, and that's in my notes to get at today. I'm going to set up a meeting with Cary, and I have a meeting set for next week to go over her initial revenue estimates, and that'll be part of that discussion. I can't put a number on it. It's positive. It's an increase in the percentage, but almost more importantly is estimating how much incomes are increasing themselves. So had that, even if it hadn't had the increase, we were going to see an increase because people are making more money. But so it's two increases there, the increase in income and then the increase in the percentage. And then is there an offset on PPRT? I think that's something.
You guys are just covering all my, this is great.
I was trying to stay in touch while I was gone.
I can tell. And that's one thing
Yeah,
I'm
this-
putting
yeah.
together for the municipalities is what that increase would look like. So we have to plug in the numbers into our spreadsheet just to kind of see how that all jives out. Pete did mention PPRT, that's the personal property replacement tax. There is a possible increase of 16% that the state would be increasing that, the diversion. So the PPRT money might decrease, the LGDF money, it might increase. So we're trying to, we hope that it's not a wash, but, and then I have to figure out what communities dip into that and then how that will affect their bottom line. So there's a lot of moving parts. as Alicia said, this just happened Thursday, late night, or even Friday
midnight.
morning. Yeah, so we're still kind of putting it all together.
And I'm going to guess that that was done precisely for that purpose, is to get more of a wash so that the state has additional revenues. And again, this year was still a fight, not like the debt ceiling, but there still was an argument about where to allocate funds, and there were more funds available. Next year, I think we're going to see even a larger challenge in how to come up with a balanced budget, because there's going to be less revenues available to the state. So it'll be real interesting. I just don't want people to feel that we're going to get this increase on a regular basis. I just don't see that happening. So, just to be aware of that. Anybody, yeah, sure,
Just one
please.
more item.
Yeah.
Also, this is mainly for law enforcement, but one of the things the municipalities are really looking at was the drone legislation that
Yeah.
came through. So we'll also be getting out information about that as well. So they'll allow drones at festivals and parades, and previously that wasn't allowed, I guess. Yeah, so.
Many people were doing it, but it wasn't officially allowed. Oh, it is. I'm looking at you laughing, because I know downstate they were doing a lot. They were using it, so. Any questions about anything that happened? Or anything else that would affect us? Mr. Short?
It's probably a deep dive, and I don't expect that you're going to have the answer, but surprise me. The SB 40, which requires the EV, I guess, wiring essentially. Was there any discussion about what the cost or what the impact is going to be to the cost of homes? I mean, we continue to have discussions in many committees about affordable housing, and I think that's going to have a significant impact.
I can look into it and see if there are fiscal notes on there,
Okay.
and get back to you on it if you like.
I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Mr. Crowe?
There's a lot of holes in that because it's looped to a lot of things. The size of the wire and the size of the conduit represents how fast vehicles will charge in those stations. And therefore also, if you go to a smaller conduit, smaller wire size, you meet the criterion here, but it could take 2.5 days to charge your car. Just
Well,
putting that out. And then
They actually do have a decent amount of specification. I really
that's what I'd
summarized
like
this
to see,
down
the
a
specification.
lot.
Because then the other thing is, how is that metered?
How do they charge for the power or not? Okay, so you do have to pay for the power if you are the user, is how I understood it.
Okay, and then you pay it like a kiosk at the pole, or do you have a designated space
They
that's
didn't
yours
get
prior
that.
to your
They didn't get that
residence?
granular into the bill.
Okay.
You know, they are to be able to pay for the actual, utility itself. And also it is on, the burden is on the renter or on the member of the association, how, depending on which way, or homeowner, depending on which, what kind of house this is, to install their own station that corresponds with their vehicle. So that's another thing to keep in mind. And
Personally, I love the EV thing, but I think it's a huge overreach of our government to tell people what they can and cannot and how they can and cannot charge their cars. But again, that's my opinion, because as Mr. Shorten states, this does add a cost to, at a time when young people, my kids included, are having a very difficult time finding housing that they can afford. They have good jobs with pay raises, but houses far outstrip that. I can't imagine anybody in a lower income echelon having to buy a house, and now it's EV capable, and the EVs cost more money that they can afford in an operating cost. But again, that's way out in the weeds. I apologize.
It's okay. Real opinions, Mr.
If I
Short.
can.
Oh, and I'm sorry. May I call on Mr. Sager first? No, that's okay. He's talked once. It's your
No, I
turn.
don't have
Oh, no? Mr. Short?
Were there any pieces of legislation that would deal with the build-out of our electric grid to deal with the distribution of electricity?
I can look into it
Okay,
anyway.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, ladies. We really appreciate that. Moving on to the routine consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to remove? Yes, Ms. Wagner?
7-1 and 7-2.
Can I have a motion then to approve 7.3? Mr. Short and Mr. Sager? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oh, wait, it's money. Sorry, may I have a roll call, please? I apologize.
Sauger,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Kunkel,
Yes.
Shorten,
Yes.
Altough.
Yes. All right, motion carries. 7.1, which is the resolution authorizing us to enter into an intergovernmental agreement. And we had kind of talked about this. This is pretty standard, I understand. But Kelly, do you have a specific question?
I
or just
do.
want a presentation?
I just want to get an idea of who's owning what. Because it says in here, Cary owns the land. So are they going to continue to own the land, and then the county will own the building and then be responsible for the repairs? So I'm just trying to get an idea of who owns what.
So Cary owns the land, and we have a lease agreement with them, and that lease is for $1 every year that we pay them. What I just handed out to you breaks down how we are going to share responsibility for the operations and maintenance of both facilities. So this IGA brings the 5 members that have been working on this from the beginning. So Lake in the Hills, Cary, McHenry, and Algonquin have been working with the county really from day one, which started like 7 years ago. So this IGA creates the Training Facility Operations Board and then outlines what the board responsibilities are. So the board is going to be responsible for the operations of the building, the initial oversight of budget. So we anticipate that as I create the budget for the sheriff's office, I'm going to also do one for the training facility, present it to them, really working with them before it's brought before you guys, and also with Tom Burrows, because he's going to, as the revenue comes in from the memberships, he's got a large portion of those that he is in charge of those contracts. So, but as you see, it's broken down on responsibility for the payments of the operations. The members came together, they decided, or they worked up the plan on what would be most fair. We estimated what the budget would be for the training facility and for the range based on other facilities and previous bills that we got from there and staff, and then decided that we would have them pay by person. The only difference is the sheriff's office, we have a lot of employees that are going to be using this, and correction officers are one of those employees, but they're not going to be using it as much as on the operations side. So they're kind of worth half a person when it comes to determining the fees for this.
And is this only for 1 year? I mean, I'm assuming there'll be some evaluation to make sure that the
It's-
allocation is working the way it should?
This is to get it started. You guys did reach out to all the other law enforcement agencies and entities, and right now, they're not coming in as members. That doesn't mean that they can't pay to use the facility, but that's something that the training facility board is gonna have to put together. What does that look like if another entity wants to use it for training, et cetera?
We're pretty confident that there will be other agencies that want to come in after the fact. They want us to do all the hard work. But the other part is they won't be voting members as the board is considered. So really the agencies and that have been ready from day one, that are willing to stick their neck out to get this thing going, they will be the ones that will be able to drive and we want this training to go. We'll get input from other law enforcement agencies, but I'm confident that these numbers will go down once the doors open and everyone recognizes what we're actually doing. We've had some good talks with some other local jurisdictions that want to get in. They just, for whatever reason, didn't want to do it from the front, right away.
So annually, we'll look at that as more people come on board. We're going to share the cost with those entities, and it's going to be fluid for a while. Again, we just estimated what the operational costs are going to be, and we think it's a good guess on that, but who knows with the economy? Honestly, everything here has doubled for us utility-wise, so we're hoping that kind of
Can I
calms down.
ask, can we do, like we do with human resources and administration, can you guys just come and maybe give us a report? You tell me quarterly, maybe
Sure.
every 6 months, after the first 6 months, and then quarterly or something, just to give us an idea
Absolutely.
of exactly where we're going, so we're not surprised if
No,
we
I don't
have to
think-
make huge adjustments.
That's what the board has talked about too. The board will meet
Yeah.
monthly, and we will be very transparent about what we're doing and moving forward and trying to tweak things as we go along. Like Sandy said, a lot of this is best guess estimates of what other agency or, facilities that size have been costing. We really think that this is our worst case scenario. I don't want to say that, but we want to not underestimate
We were
what we thought this
conservative
was
on
going to
this.
look like.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. I guess, and when we looked at it, and John was about $600. So when you talk about it, if you want to really break it down, this costs $600 to train an officer a year. When you think about it, that is super cheap.
Well, compared to what were we paying previously?
Well, so the other part is, it's kind of difficult to say because it wasn't consistent. Officers met their minimum mandates just to, do that. These are going to be the above and beyond so that our officers and our whole county aren't scrutinized with that, the Training Act that came through, with the Safety Act, all the mandates, the unfunded mandates that came down. There was an offset. So this is 2024 is the first year that it goes into effect, right? So letters A through G, I forget what they are. So officers with letters A through whatever it was have to meet the mandate by 2024. And then whatever that letter is, the next third was 2025, and then it was consistent. So, it's kind of hodgepodge, but this is to make sure that letters A through Z meet it every single year. And that, I think fits what we're trying to do as a county, not just meet the mandate, but exceed it. So like I said, for $600 a year to get these guys trained, guys and gals, it's super cheap, and that's just a start.
So we expect to have the doors open at the training facility by October 1st. I know.
Okay.
So we were given an earlier date, so I'm not going to give you that earlier date. We're shooting for October 1st because I believe the 14th we already have a training scheduled. The range, we're just barely breaking ground and moving dirt, so that we're still looking at January. So these costs, we're going to open doors. It's probably going to take a little time for it to really get up and running, but I would say a year from now, we're going to have an awesome budget to show you. I'm really hoping we're going to have more entities on board because they have to provide the training, and sharing the costs, especially for these smaller municipalities and villages, just makes sense.
So in light of that, that's why I'm asking. I'm not because we want to, oversee everything you're
Right.
doing. But if we want to send a message out to all of our communities that this is a wise decision and everybody should join, the more we share that information with the people that represent the area, the better, the easier time you'll have of it, hopefully, to convince the other electeds that have to make that decision, right?
And above and beyond that, I have committed to all the local law enforcement agencies that we will cover their areas if they have to send someone for training, they're down a guide. So we are really talking and working together that we can shift, if Lake in the Hills has sent 3 officers and they only got 1 guy on the road, our sergeant in our area car are going to go down there and help them out and make sure that we are covering them and working with them. And I think that as that grows and that becomes more of, I want to make that more of a norm regardless of what we do, and we do a pretty good job of that anyway, but to break down those silos that, we're really all working together, I think this will be the kickoff point for that. And then some of the other agencies that see that will want to be part of that. Not like we're going to bully them, but they just want to see it work out. They want to see how that works. And I think we've been committed on the front end of making sure that this is very successful. We want everyone to be in it. I know money's tight, especially for the smaller jurisdictions, so working with that as well.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for everybody, especially with all the training. So thank you for the whole overview. What I'm looking at is the build and the cost of it. So is the county the only one who's paying for the buildings and
Yes.
the renovations?
Yep, so previously, we brought through resolutions for both facilities. We are estimating $9.3 million. 6.2 of that is ARPA funds, and the rest is the sheriff's office discretionary funds.
I just didn't know if any of the other municipalities were chipping in.
No, and honestly, they can all back out, and it's still us. Then it's really all on us. We don't anticipate that, but at the end of the day, it's a county building.
And if there are repairs in the future,
That'll be built into the budget.
into the operating budget, okay.
Yes,
And the
so-
insurance, I think you
All of
said in
that's
there.
being built
Okay.
in. And I should add, with the training facility and the firing range, it's set up kind of like our intergovernmental agreements with our NARCs. The municipality is responsible for workers' comp and all of that. If they get hurt there, They are the employee of that municipality, and that's who's responsible for them.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Campbell, did you have
I
a
think
question?
you already were answering it, but it was basically, because you had talked before about covering different shifts for other municipalities or units in order to have that training possible. So I think what you're looking for is eventually the municipalities would also provide help in that regard and helping to cover each other's shifts, so it's not always falling.
And they
on the
do,
department.
I think, and, I think there's a bigger topic to be had about changing, what does law enforcement shift work look like? I think we get stuck in the mindset of we work an 8.5-hour day, and I know the undersheriff and I have been in communications with members, not just within our agency, but other organizations, and really changing that landscape because, I think training is more and more important. Our community is asking more and more of our officers, and it's just difficult. It's difficult to meet the needs of the shift work in conjunction with the needs of the officer. You guys talked about, veterans wellness. Our officers are going through the same thing. So what can we do to set them up for success, physically, mentally, and, spiritually? And how are they ready to rock and roll when they hit the road? Well, we got to invest in them. So I think this is step one. I think we're just, we'll be coming back and talking about other programs that we want to do moving forward. And that's what excites me, is because that's the right thing to do for our community.
I know the district went to, I just wanted to finish up that one, but I know the district went to 10-hour shifts, and partly for that reason, in order to kind of have a better work-life balance.
For sure.
And I think that's actually worked out really well. I think the other question was initially, so this is going to satisfy all of the requirements in the Safety Act for training that we can do here, because I think the concern was having to go elsewhere and have all that downtime. So this is going to satisfy all of that.
So that's going to be the responsibility of the board. Is we had talked about what are our first training classes that what are the initiative training classes that we have to get at least to meet the standards. There's going to be having a little bit of work to go along with that with the Illinois Law Enforcement Training and Standards Board. They're the ones that accredit the courses that allow the training to satisfy the needs. So we are working on that, and yes, the goal is to make sure that at least the minimums are met, and what that looks like, that's what we're trying to iron out. But yes, you are correct that the goal is to make sure that every officer, if you look on the state website, it has green check marks and red X's. We're all green check marks for every officer in this county.
We spend a lot of money sending officers out of the county for training, even without that. So this is going to help not only the county, but all the municipalities, bringing the trainers to us. So we're not paying for fuel for them to stay overnight somewhere, per diems. That really adds up when it comes to training.
That's what I was kind of asking when I said $600 compared to all of that, which are those
Yeah.
kind of intangible costs that we
Yeah.
don't necessarily
Correct.
Always
roll
include in
in.
that.
Yeah.
Well, and Matt knows that there's nothing more satisfying than going to a call and it may be someone from another agency, and when you walk up together and you've trained together before, that is one less thing an officer has to worry about, is what kind of training did this officer have and where are they at in their career. The whole goal is that, as young Rob, when he was a deputy, if I looked over my shoulder and saw where my partner was, I was like, all right, I got this. As opposed to, sometimes you look over and be like, this is going to be a tough call. So,
Mr. Kunkel, did you have a question? Then
Yeah,
we'll go to Mr.
that is
Sager.
true. It's fluid when you come on there, and we had county where I worked too, and you knew these guys and trained with these guys, so it was fluid whenever you went to a situation. My question is, I know the ISP works a program like this, especially through Illinois State Police, through their ranges. Has anybody talked to them? Are you looking to pull outside of McHenry County, or is that it?
all the above.
U.S. Customs, United States Marshals, all of them train also. And I've heard it from a little bird on the outside that the range system in ISP in Kane County is literally falling down.
Yeah.
So I know that we have members that are in the DEA. I know they're chomping at the bit to, get in here. And that's going to be the responsibility of the board to make sure, one, we want to take care of our own officers first, obviously, right? We want to fill that line and then continue to work with our, our state and federal partners on how we can train, because we deal with them on a daily basis as well. So you are spot on that ideally we can, partnerships with anyone and everyone, we're gonna, be open arms with a lot of other agencies.
And then the pockets are a little deeper too, and they pull from someone that's not county
For sure.
specific or municipality specific, if we pull from some of those outside resources too.
Yep, exactly.
Mr. Sager.
Yeah, I just wanted to commend you all and thank you sincerely for the incredible leadership that you provided on this, particularly the two of you all. And I know you have others within the department that have done that, but this is not an easy task, bringing everybody to the table. I mean, we all know how challenging it is sometimes to get different jurisdictions together and then try to make decisions about how all this is going to unfold. You've got to start with sharing the vision, but then you have to get into the nitty-gritty details and the weeds, and that's very difficult, as exemplified by the force consolidation dispatch before. I mean, it just is an incredible effort. So thank you all for that effort, for that vision, but also thank you for your ability, I think, to make it happen, frankly. I mean, from start to finish, it's not something that we always guarantee is going to be possible, but you all have made this possible, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I have to tell you, I'm a little bit not happy with the city of Woodstock if Woodstock didn't participate in this, and so I'm going to have a conversation with them about that, but I do acknowledge the fact that not everybody can from the start, determine a commitment at that time. So I do get that, but at the same time, I appreciate the fact that you all are planning, working with your board on how you can provide opportunities for those who didn't jump in at the beginning.
And I'd be more than happy to, whatever information you need or however you want to talk with Woodstock, I'd be more than happy to work with you. And, you know, like I said, if we had all law enforcement agencies in it, that's the goal. It really is. And I think, you know, some of the smaller departments that have challenges, you know, financial challenges, it's daunting. These numbers, you know, on paper, they look scary, but when you try to break it down, $600 an officer, and that's what we have right now. It'll only go down as we bring more officers in. That per officer goes down a ton. You know, that's one of those things I think are difficult conversations to have when you ask for more money. But at the end of the day, you know, I know what the citizens want in this county, and I know why this county is really, really good at what we do. It's because of investments that we make in our officers. And I think the unintended positive consequence that we get from that is once the word gets out of what we're doing in this county, everyone that doesn't work in this county is going to want to work in this county, or our future, you know, law enforcement officers, or, you know, veterans that want to come back. They're going to see what we're doing, taking care of our employees and making sure that they're in a good spot so when they do go to work. And this is the start of all that. So I think, you know, that with the partnership with all the other agencies it's legit, and I'm really, really excited about it.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that you're willing to constructively talk to other municipalities. My conversation probably won't be as constructive.
Okay.
It's better you than us.
I'll let you do that.
And I'm going to start with asking Peter to talk to his cohort in Woodstock to warn him that I'm coming after. So,
I just want to know Brooke McHenry, one of the founders. Mr. Short,
Since I'm the last one here, there's been a lot said here, so I'll try not to parrot too much of it. But I do want to first acknowledge Sheriff Bill Prim, which this project started with. And
And then he walked in the door.
Yeah.
Really.
So, and I appreciate the fact that you're carrying forth his vision, and I really appreciate the way it's articulated. You know, a lot of times when you're talking to taxpayers, and there's a lot of frustration about costs and spending, and why are we building a Taj Mahal of whatever XYZ might be. I think this XYZ is very worthy. You said it here today, and I think you said it in the meeting 2 or 3 meetings ago, about the consistency in response and being able to trust whether it's your partner in the sheriff's office or your partner in Algonquin, that if you show up for a call together, you all know what to expect. And I think that is something that can't be articulated more. The fiscal impact, you know, there's a lot of soft cost savings that'll be experienced there that people, I think, need to understand. And like Mr. Sauger, I noticed that City of Crystal Lake's not on there, so I'd be happy to sit down with you and understand what the challenges are there and see if we can help move those conversations out. Thank you.
And we're even open to, if they don't want to, maybe they want just to use the training facility and not the range because they have a pre-existing arrangement, that is able to be broken out as well, so.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Motion by Ms. Wagner, seconded by Mr. Shorten to approve 7.1 of the routine consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. 7.2, Ms. Wagner.
I just had a question why there's 2 different prices and there's an odd number of months on both of them.
So, good question. What we tried to do, so first of all, we're coming back before you because as, the legislation changed, I think, 3 times, and we thought we had a good understanding of who was supposed to be wearing body cameras, and there was a little bit of an oversight there. Okay, so our Marine unit needs to also be wearing them. We have 4 civil process servers who need to be wearing them, and 1 individual in our narcotics unit, which is not an employee of the county, but their municipality has not met that threshold yet to be required to wear a camera. So we feel that we need to put them in a camera until their municipality can do that for them.
We'll get that camera in 2 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
When they are.
But you'll work, yeah.
Correct. And then, of course, the vehicles. So we've had a lot of difficulty with vehicles, and we're utilizing pool cars way more. So we need the pool cars. We also have 4 narcotic undercover vehicles that need the cameras, and then 1 admin lieutenant who has a marked car, which we just didn't have included because we didn't really envision that being an issue, but that person could always be out on the road. So we went back to Axon and said, hey, we need to add to our current lease, and we need to add 10 to the body camera and the tasers, which is 1 package, and then the fleet is another package. So they maintained the prices that we got originally. So that's why there's a little bit of difference between the 2 packages, and then they folded it in to our original lease. The only difference is because the in-car cameras are about 8 months out. Our first payment for the in-car cameras isn't going to be until February. The body cameras, as soon as this goes through the county board, we can have them in 7 days. So they have us making 2 payments this fiscal year to get us up to date on the lease, so that we just fold into the annual payments. So those end in 2026.
That makes sense. You don't have to pay for it until we get it.
Right.
Any questions?
Did that make sense?
And there is enough money in the ARPA, well, I guess we'll talk about this in finance, but.
Yeah, so in that area, I'm gonna have to pull Cary Weiss in, because I went and pleaded my case and asked her. I said, I don't know, is it gonna be ARPA funds? It looks like she's taking it here from the fund balance, the general fund balance.
Yeah, I just thought we had committed all those funds. We'll talk about it in finance.
Okay, I'll make sure that she's
Yeah,
around for that too.
Mr. Sager?
Forgive me, Chair, this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but not so much tongue-in-cheek. Sheriff, how do you deal without her?
Oh, jeez. Sometimes he wants to, I'm sure, deal without me.
I'm just gonna smile. Sandy does a
Yeah.
fantastic job, and I think a lot of that has to go hand in hand with her ability to work with all of our chiefs and our staff. I mean, and you guys know this, there's a lot of work that just goes in a little piece of paper. I know Chief Muraski has been working with Axon on trying to figure this out. We have a really good understanding of what our manpower looks like, what the legislator is directing us, the laws that are directing us to do what we need to do to meet our mandates. And again, I think, we come from the standpoint of we just don't want to meet them, we want to make sure that it goes above and beyond. So all the guys and gals that are on the road, that when they jump into a pool car, it feels like they're in their normal vehicle. So right now when they jump in a pool car, they no longer have an in-car camera. Well, it's great to have the body cam, but when it comes to a DUI and you need video footage of what the actual infraction that started this whole case off with, it totally helps it. And then that just goes above and beyond. There's so many other mandates that are required of it that really we recognize that, we could get better in it. That's really where this comes from. So, yes, I would agree with you. Sandy's been awesome through all of this.
She is. Thank you.
So make sure you train somebody if you ever decide.
I will say, if you guys don't have any questions on this one, I want to jump in front of you, but there is, so last night, we had one of our deputies located a missing juvenile out of Plano, Illinois, and that was because of our LPR system, our license plate readers. I know that's been a big talk about with flock and what have you, so our officer was on routine patrol, came back on a hit on a car, stopped that car. That was a missing juvenile out of Plano, was able to identify that individual, get in contact with Plano, verify it, and then that juvenile was then turned over to their parents. So that's a success story. I know that there's a lot of worries about Big Brother and all that. These are the stories that we find out And if, I would be more than happy to share with you all the critical reaches. Those are the BOLOs, the bulletins that are put out by law enforcement that, be on the lookout for, of cameras that are picking up stolen vehicles and what have you all over the place. There was just a vehicle that was stopped not too far from here that was a stolen vehicle, and law enforcement had to, take action on it. We were able to recover the vehicle and identify individuals all through this this technology. So it really does work, and it was perfect that we happened to have a case that I could talk easily about. It just happened last night. So there is no dollar amount that you can put on those, but there is success stories that we can share.
These are everywhere. They're everywhere right now, but they are not on county right of way. And we're going to have a little discussion on this tomorrow on Transportation Committee. Shaylin and I were approached by Chief Inman of Cary, and he's the Chiefs of Police Association, about consideration for allowing these on county right of way, and we're going to have that discussion with the Transportation Committee tomorrow. They're, like I said, they're all over the place now, but they aren't on Randall, they aren't on Algonquin, they aren't on Walker.
Any other questions? If okay, motion by Ms. Campbell, seconded by Mr. Sager to approve 7.2. Again, this is an expenditure, so roll call, please.
Kunkel.
Yes?
Campbell.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Sager.
Yes.
Shorten.
Yes.
Altough.
Yes. Thank you very much, really appreciate that. There are no presentations, we have no old business.
Another piece of exciting legislation is what's happening with long-term care. I just had some good communication with Tom Matarola over the weekend, and he's super excited. He feels like they had multiple victories on terms of long-term care funding as it relates to the state's budget. So I can't articulate beyond that, just that Tom's excited. If Tom's excited, I'm excited. But we're going to roll up our sleeves, work with Scott's model for Valley High funding, and try and fold in what these anticipated new revenues are there.
And can you just, may I ask to, responding to Ms. Wagner's question, can we make sure that this committee is aware how that contract is, that additions to that contract is going to be funded?
Yeah,
The
I wrote
additional
that
body
down.
cams, please.
In terms of the balance of this year, I think it was like 74,000. It wasn't too daunting, but we did sit down with Cary, and she was confident.
I'm sure, I just want to know from what pot of money it's coming from. I'm not, worried about it. But, again, thank you very much. No executive session necessary. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Ms. Wagner, seconded by Mr. Shorten. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.